Our baby left in the cold of the early morning is saved by something that no one could explain. But what happens years later, with a horse in its shadow, will challenge everything you believe is possible. The luxury pickup truck advanced slowly along the dirt road, cutting through the silence of the cold winter night in the outskirts of Cedar Falls. The starry sky seemed to observe, as a silent witness, each movement of Oliver Blackwood. His hands gripped the steering wheel with disproportionate force, while his eyes, fixed on the path ahead, reflected an inner storm that contrasted with his apparently controlled posture. In the back seat, two small bundles remained in absolute silence. His newborn twin daughters, both born blind. With each mile traveled, the weight on his shoulders seemed to increase, crushing any certainty he might have had about the decision he was about to make. When he reached a clearing bathed in moonlight, which formed a silver circle over the damp earth, Oliver finally stopped. There, surrounded by century-old trees that seemed like guardians of ancient secrets, he descended from the vehicle with the two children in his arms. The world around seemed to freeze. The night birds fell silent. The wind ceased, as if all nature held its breath before what was about to happen. With slow gestures, as if each movement extracted a piece of his own soul, Oliver placed one of the children on the earth, carefully wrapped in a blanket woven with geometric patterns. The other remained in his arms for a few more moments, while he fought against the impulse to return to the car with both. Finally overcome by the plan he had traced, he deposited the second child beside the first, tying a small wooden amulet around this one's neck. "Forgive me," he whispered, the word escaping almost without volume, carried by the weight of a secret that consumed him from within. Without looking back, Oliver returned to the truck and departed, leaving behind much more than his daughters. He left there irreparable fragments of his humanity. When the last echo of the engine disappeared, among the mountains, a new sound emerged from the forest. Firm and rhythmic steps approached the clearing, revealing an imposing black horse with silver eyes that gleamed under the moonlight. The animal seemed to possess its own consciousness, advancing with purpose toward the two abandoned children. It bent over one of them, touching her gently with its muzzle as in a gesture of ancestral recognition. Then, with surprising delicacy, it positioned the baby on its back and disappeared into the forest, leaving the other child alone, protected only by the blanket and the starry sky. Hours later, Dorothy and Paul Mitchell, a couple of teachers, returning from a cultural gathering in a nearby village, spotted something unusual on the roadside. "Paul, stop the car, there's something there!" exclaimed Dorothy, pointing to a small bundle that seemed out of place in that wild landscape. Approaching cautiously, they found the baby wrapped in the colorful blanket, in surprising silence for an abandoned newborn. "My God, Paul, it's a child." Dorothy took her in her arms, feeling an immediate connection with that small being. She doesn't react to light. I think she can't see." The couple looked at each other, sharing a silent communication that only years of living together could provide. The nearest police station was more than an hour away, and the night was becoming increasingly cold. "Let's take her with us to Williamsburg. Tomorrow we'll decide what to do," said Paul, already leading his wife and the newly found child back to the car. That same dawn, miles away, in the Valley of Springs, a preserved region between mountains and untouched waterfalls, the Black Horse emerged from the forest. It approached a small wooden cabin and remained motionless before the door, as if waiting patiently. Dawn was beginning to tinge the horizon when the door opened, revealing Madeline, a middle-aged woman with serene features and eyes that reflected ancient wisdom. Seeing the majestic animal with the small bundle on its back, Madeline showed no surprise, merely nodded as one who recognizes the fulfillment of an ancient prophecy. "Jake," she called into the cabin, without taking her eyes off the horse. "She has arrived." A man with sun-marked skin and calloused hands appeared at the door, observing the scene with solemn expression. Together they approached the animal, which lowered itself slightly, allowing Madeline to take the child in her arms. As soon as the transfer was completed, the horse rose, whinnied softly, and disappeared again into the woods, as if its mission were complete. "It is as we were told," murmured Jake, gently touching the baby's face. "She does not see with her eyes." But she will see with her soul, completed Madeline, entering the cabin with the child. Her name will be Iris, daughter of the waters and guardian of what is to come. The sun finally rose completely, illuminating both the Valley of Springs and the small town of Williamsburg, where Dorothy and Paul arrived with the other child, who would soon receive the name Luna. The sisters, separated by physical distance, remained connected by invisible bonds that not even time would be able to break. If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us what city you're watching from. Let's continue. 15 years passed like a breath. In Williamsburg, the historic city of colonial houses and cobblestone streets, Luna grew up surrounded by books, music, and the unconditional love of Dorothy and Paul. Despite her blindness, or perhaps because of it, she developed extraordinary sensitivity to patterns, sounds, and vibrations that went unnoticed by most people. That autumn morning, sitting on the bench in the central square, Luna awaited the end of the history class her mother taught at the municipal school. Her delicate fingers traced the pages of a Braille book, but her mind wandered distant, captured by an uneasiness that had become more frequent in recent months. "You're far away today," commented Sarah, her best friend since childhood, sitting beside her. "I had that dream again," Luna replied, closing the book. "The clearing, the curved trees, that feeling that someone is calling me." Sarah observed her friend with curiosity. She knew well that expression of Luna's, a mixture of fascination and anguish that arose whenever she mentioned her recurring dreams. "Maybe you should tell your parents about these dreams," suggested Sarah, adjusting her glasses over her freckled nose. "They would worry unnecessarily." Luna instinctively touched the small wooden amulet she never took from her neck. "Besides, they're not just dreams. Sometimes, when I touch this amulet, I can swear I hear voices, like whispers in a language I never learned but somehow understand." Hundreds of miles away in the Valley of Springs, Iris walked barefoot along a narrow trail that wound between century-old trees. Her steps were firm and sure, as if she could see each stone, each root, each curve of the path. The valley, protected by imposing mountains and crystalline waterfalls, was a natural sanctuary preserved by generations of guardians. "You're late, girl," the deep and melodious voice of Mother Delilah, spiritual leader of the Sanctuary of Living Earth, reached Iris before she even arrived at the sacred clearing. "Forgive me, Mother Delilah. The river asked me to wait," Iris replied, approaching the elder with respect. Mother Delilah, a black woman with snow-white hair and eyes that seemed to contain the wisdom of centuries, smiled at the young woman's response. She knew well the unique connection that Iris maintained with the natural elements. "And what did the river tell you this time?" she asked, leading her to the center of the clearing, where 4 other women already waited in a circle. "That the waters are restless. Something is changing." Iris sat in the indicated position, feeling the energy of the other guardians around her. "I have seen lights, Mother Delilah, lights that dance even in the darkness of my eyes." The elder exchanged meaningful looks with the other women. The signs they had long awaited were beginning to manifest. "It is time for you to know your true history, daughter," declared Mother Delilah, taking Iris's hands between hers. 15 years ago, on the night of the root moon, you were brought to us by the Black Guardian, the protective spirit of the forest that takes the form of a horse. In Williamsburg, the same truth was beginning to reveal itself differently. In the basement of the Mitchell house, while searching for material for a school project, Luna found an old wooden box carved with symbols that somehow seemed familiar to her sensitive fingers. "What is this?" she murmured to herself, opening the box carefully. Inside, her fingers found a leather-bound diary, along with newspaper clippings and a small envelope. Intrigued, she took everything to her room. Hours later, when Dorothy came up to call her for dinner, she found her absorbed, with her fingers furiously tracing the diary pages. "Luna?" called Dorothy, feeling a tightness in her chest seeing her daughter's disturbed expression. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Luna's voice trembled. "About how you found me on the road? About me being abandoned?" Dorothy sat on the edge of the bed, her heart racing. She knew this moment would come, but didn't expect it to be this way. "We wanted to protect you, my love. We were waiting for the right moment." There's more, isn't there? Interrupted Luna, holding the diary tightly. This diary talks about legends, about twins born during an eclipse, about crystals and guardians. And there are these notes about the Valley of Springs. This has to do with me, doesn't it? In the valley, Iris was absorbing similar revelations. Mother Delilah told her about the prophecy of the children of the root moon, children born blind during a specific eclipse, destined to restore the balance between the natural and human worlds. "You are not alone in this journey, Iris," said Mother Delilah, her solemn voice echoing through the clearing. "Somewhere there is another like you, a sister, separated at birth, but connected by the same destiny." A sister? Iris's voice failed, while a strange sensation coursed through her body, as if a part of herself long dormant was beginning to awaken. The signs are manifesting. The winds change without reason. The rivers sing in ancient frequencies. Animals migrate in patterns never seen, continued the elder. The circle of concrete, those who seek to dominate nature for their own benefit, have also perceived these changes. They are looking for both of you. In Williamsburg, Paul joined Dorothy and Luna. Together they told their daughter everything they knew about the night they found her. They showed her the small newspaper clipping they kept, mentioning the disappearance of the twin daughters of Oliver Blackwood, a powerful businessman in the energy sector. "This diary belonged to my grandmother," explained Paul. "She studied ancient American traditions, especially those linked to nature protection. When we found you with this amulet," he touched the pendant on Luna's neck, "my grandmother said you could be part of something greater." That night, both Luna and Iris lay down with tumultuous thoughts and restless hearts. Separated by distance, but united by a common destiny, both felt a growing urgency, as if time was running out for something important. On the horizon, dark clouds were forming. In his luxurious office in New York, Oliver Blackwood observed reports about inexplicable natural phenomena occurring in different regions of the United States. His phone rang. "The patterns have been confirmed," said the voice on the other end of the line. "The energy anomalies are increasing, especially in the Valley of Springs, and surprisingly, in Williamsburg." Oliver closed his eyes, feeling the weight of 15 years of regret and secrets. "Find them," he ordered simply, hanging up afterward. On the wall of his office, a large map of the United States displayed interconnected luminous points, forming a pattern that resembled constellations. At the center of this map, two photos, one of Luna and another of Iris, both taken discreetly, without the young women noticing. Below, an inscription, "Crystal Guardian Project, Final Phase." The morning dawned in Williamsburg with a soft mist that embraced the colonial houses. Luna awakened, startled, her heart racing and her skin covered by a thin layer of sweat. The dream this time had been more intense, more real. She sat on the edge of the bed, touching the wooden amulet that seemed to pulse against her fingers. "Valley of Springs," she murmured to herself, as if testing the taste of those words in her mouth. After the previous night's revelations, something had changed within her. It wasn't just the discovery of her origin, but a growing certainty that there was a greater purpose in her existence. She got up determined, heading to the bathroom with the familiarity of one who knows every inch of the house. As the warm water ran down her face, she made a decision. In the kitchen, Dorothy was preparing breakfast when Luna entered, already dressed in hiking pants and with a backpack on her shoulders. "I need to go to the Valley of Springs," she announced. Without preamble, her voice firm and determined. Dorothy let out a deep sigh. She knew that tone. It was the same Paul used when he had made an irrevocable decision. "Luna, I understand your confusion and curiosity, but you can't simply leave like this, without planning, without—" "It's not confusion, Mother," interrupted Luna, approaching, and finding Dorothy's hands with precision. "It's clarity. For the first time in my life, I feel I know exactly what I need to do. There's something calling me, something important." Paul entered the kitchen in time to hear his daughter's last words. He exchanged a worried look with his wife. "If you really need to go, you won't go alone," he declared, his voice mixing firmness and tenderness. We'll go together, as a family. In the Valley of Springs, Iris was awakening to her new purpose with equal determination. After Mother Delilah's revelation, she had spent the night in meditation at the Sanctuary of Living Earth, seeking connection with her unknown sister. During the hours of deep concentration, surprising images formed in her mind. Cobblestone streets, a thick-walled house, and a young woman touching an amulet identical to the one Madeline carefully kept in a cedar chest. "She is coming," announced Iris, entering the cabin where Jake and Madeline were having tea made from herbs gathered at dawn. Madeline nodded silently, as if she already knew. Jake, on the other hand, frowned with concern. "The circle of concrete is also moving," he commented, serving more tea for his daughter. The birds brought news of strangers in the region, asking questions, installing equipment at the edges of the valley. "We need to prepare her for the meeting," said Madeline, standing up with determination. "Come, Iris. It's time to know the rest of the story." The woman led Iris to a small annex of the cabin, a space that had always remained locked. The aroma of dried herbs and damp earth intensified when Madeline opened the door. In the center of the room, a simple altar supported a box carved with the same symbols that decorated Luna's amulet. "When the Black Guardian brought you to us," began Madeline, her voice taking on an almost ritualistic tone, "he also delivered this to us." Upon opening the box, she revealed a crystal fragment that emitted a bluish glow, even in the room's dimness. Iris, who normally perceived only gradations of light and shadow, was surprised to clearly distinguish the object's luminosity. "I can see," she whispered, amazed, extending her trembling hand toward the crystal. When her fingers touched the smooth and cold surface of the stone, a wave of energy coursed through her body. Immediately, clear images flooded her mind. A clearing. Under moonlight, a man with tormented eyes, two babies side by side, and then a black horse separating them. She saw forests, rivers, mountains, as if she were flying over the United States at high speed, identifying luminous points that pulsed in synchrony with her own heart. Far away, in New York, Oliver Blackwood received the first reports from teams sent to the Valley of Springs and Williamsburg. In his luxurious office, the businessman studied the documents with a mixture of anxiety and fascination. "So the crystals have begun to react," he murmured to Vincent Strong, his personal assistant and leader of the Circle of Concrete's field operations. "Yes, sir," confirmed Vincent, a middle-aged man with cold and calculating eyes. "The sensors detected energy peaks in both locations. And there's more. Our sources confirm that the girl from Williamsburg is preparing to travel to the valley. It seems the reunion is imminent." Oliver walked to the window, observing the grey city that stretched below. His business empire, built at the cost of ignored environmental compromises and questionable political influence, was at stake. 15 years, he said, more to himself than to Vincent. 15 years waiting, monitoring, preparing, and now, finally. In Williamsburg, the Mitchell family was preparing for the trip. Paul had obtained information about the Valley of Springs, a region of difficult access, known for its extraordinary biodiversity and the traditional communities that zealously protected it. According to this information, he explained, spreading maps on the living room table, the valley is practically isolated. Few roads lead there, and most paths can only be traveled on foot or horseback. "How will we find my sister when we get there?" asked Luna, her voice hesitant when mentioning that new family bond that still seemed unreal. "The diary mentions a place called Sanctuary of Living Earth," replied Dorothy, consulting the notes they had made. "It seems to be an important spiritual center for the region's guardians." While they talked, Luna felt the amulet on her neck suddenly warm up. When touching it, an electrifying sensation ran through her fingers. At the same instant, just as happened with Iris in the valley, crystalline images formed in her mind. She saw clearings, waterfalls, a small wooden cabin, and more clearly, a young woman identical to herself, holding a bright crystal fragment. "I'm seeing," she exclaimed, frightened and amazed at the same time. "Mom, Dad, I'm seeing." Dorothy and Paul exchanged confused and hopeful looks. "What are you seeing, dear?" asked Dorothy, approaching cautiously. "Everything. I see a cabin, a forest, I see her." Luna extended her hand in the air, as if she could touch the images. "My sister is holding a crystal. She also sees me." In the Valley of Springs, Iris was living the same extraordinary experience. Through the crystal fragment, she had established a visual connection with Luna, transcending physical barriers and the limitation of her blindness. Mother Delilah was right, she said to Madeline, who watched in amazement the transformation in her adoptive daughter. "The reunion has already begun, even before we are physically together." Outside the cabin, a familiar sound made Iris interrupt the connection. The powerful whinny of the Black Guardian echoed through the clearing. Jake opened the door, revealing the majestic horse standing before the house, exactly as on the night he brought Iris. "He has returned," announced Jake, his voice laden with reverence. "It's a sign," declared Madeline. "It's time to go to the birth clearing." The circle begins to close. In the sky, dark clouds formed rapidly, creating unusual circular patterns. Migratory birds altered their routes, converging to the Valley of Springs in formations never before recorded. In the rivers, fish swam against the current, creating whirlpools that intrigued local fishermen. All of nature seemed to respond to the call of the guardian crystals, preparing for the moment of reunion of the sisters who, separated at birth, were about to unite their destinies again. However, in the shadows, other forces moved, determined to interfere in this reunion and capture the power that was beginning to awaken. The road leading to the Valley of Springs wound between imposing mountains, like a river of narrow and sinuous asphalt. The Mitchell family car advanced slowly, facing tight curves and poorly maintained stretches. Paul drove cautiously, while Dorothy consulted the map open on her lap, trying to identify the references mentioned in the diary. "We should be near the point where the road ends," she informed, adjusting her glasses. "From here on, we'll have to continue on foot." In the back seat, Luna remained strangely silent, her fingers constantly caressing the wooden amulet. Since the visual experience of the previous night, something had fundamentally changed in her perception of the world. Although she remained technically blind, she occasionally captured flashes of images, like mental photographs that appeared and disappeared quickly. "Everything okay back there?" asked Paul, observing her through the rearview mirror. "Yes," Luna replied, smiling slightly. "I'm just feeling the place. It's different from anything I've ever experienced. The air here has textures I can almost touch." Indeed, as they approached the valley, the atmosphere seemed charged with subtle energy. The sky, previously clear, now presented cloud formations that danced in circular patterns as if accompanying a silent music. Birds of diverse species flew over the vehicle, some even flying parallel to the windows for a few moments, as if escorting the visitors. "I've never seen animal behavior like this," commented Dorothy, marveled by a flock of hummingbirds that accompanied the car. The vehicle finally reached a small natural parking area where a few other cars were parked. An elderly man with sun-wrinkled skin and long grey hair tied in a ponytail approached. "Visitors to the valley?" he asked with a rough but gentle voice. "Yes," replied Paul, extending his hand in greeting. "We're looking for the sanctuary of Living Earth." The man studied each of them carefully, his gaze lingering a little longer on Luna. A subtle smile formed on his lips. "I think you're expected," he said finally. "I'm Anthony, guardian of the valley entrance. I can guide you through the first stretch of the trail, but after that, the path will reveal itself." Meanwhile, in the heart of the valley, Iris was preparing for the journey to the birth clearing. Mother Delilah had convened a special ritual at the sanctuary, gathering the 7 oldest guardians to bless the walk that was about to begin. "The Black Guardian awaits on the Eastern Trail," informed Jessica, the youngest of the guardians hurriedly entering the sanctuary. "And there's more. Our observers reported unusual movement at the valley's limits, men with equipment, large vehicles camouflaged among the trees." Mother Delilah exchanged worried looks with Madeline and Jake. The circle of concrete advances. "Faster than we predicted," said the elder, her voice carrying the weight of concern. "Iris must leave immediately. We have prepared you for 15 years for this moment, daughter. Trust the signs, trust your enhanced senses. Iris nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility she carried. The crystal fragment, now hanging on, her neck inside a small leather pouch, pulsed gently against her skin, like a second heart. "And what about my sister?" she asked, thinking of the connection they had established. "She is already in the valley," replied Mother Delilah, surprising. "Everyone. I can feel her presence, as well as the energy of the other crystal fragment. You will meet in the clearing, as it is written." At the improvised operations center on the valley's edges, Vincent Strong coordinated the Circle of Concrete team. Monitors displayed thermal maps of the region, highlighting energy anomalies that intensified with each hour. The sensors detected 2 points of high energy concentration in movement, informed a technician, pointing to the digital map. One departing from the sanctuary, another climbing the main trail. They seemed to be converging to this central point. Vincent enlarged the image, revealing a perfectly circular clearing in the valley's heart. "The birth clearing," he murmured, a calculating smile forming on his angular face. "Exactly as Oliver predicted. The twins are reuniting at the place where they were separated." He picked up the satellite phone, dialing quickly. "Mr. Blackwood, they're heading to the clearing." "Yes, both of them." "We're strategically positioned. No, don't worry, they won't perceive our presence until it's too late." On the valley's main trail, Paul, Dorothy, and Luna followed Anthony along an increasingly narrow and wild path. The surrounding vegetation became denser and more vibrant, with intense colors that even Luna seemed to capture somehow mysteriously. "The trees are singing," she commented suddenly, stopping in the middle of the path. The others paused, looking at her curiously. "What do you mean, dear?" asked Dorothy. "Listen," Luna requested, closing her eyes and slightly raising her face. "It's not the wind in the leaves. It's something different, like a vibration. A very ancient music." Anthony smiled, clearly impressed. "You have the gift of deep listening," he said, approaching respectfully. "Few can hear the song of the ancestral trees. This is a good sign." They continued walking for a few more 100 meters until reaching a fork in the trail. Anthony stopped, pointing to the right path that gently climbed between moss-covered rocks. "From here on I must leave you," he announced. "Follow this path. It will take you where you need to go." "Won't you accompany us?" asked Paul, concerned about the idea of continuing alone through unknown territory. "Some journeys must be completed by those to whom they belong," Anthony replied enigmatically. "Besides," he added, looking directly at Luna, "you won't be alone for much longer." He said goodbye with a solemn gesture and returned by the path they had traveled, soon disappearing among the dense vegetation. The Mitchell family exchanged uncertain looks before deciding to continue along the indicated trail. Luna, surprisingly, took the lead, moving with uncommon confidence for someone who couldn't see the irregular terrain. "Luna, be careful," Dorothy alerted, worried. "Everything's fine, Mom," the young woman replied, without slowing her pace. "Somehow, I know exactly where to step. It's as if the path reveals itself to me before my feet touch it." Meanwhile, on the eastern trail, Iris advanced with similar determination. The Black Guardian walked beside her, serving as silent protector and guide. The young woman could feel her sister's presence growing stronger with each step, as if an invisible thread connected them and was gradually shortening the distance between them. The crystal fragment on her neck glowed increasingly intensely, emitting a light hum that only Iris could hear. The surrounding trees seemed to respond to this energy, their leaves vibrating in tune with the crystal's silent melody. At a certain point, the black horse stopped abruptly, ears raised in alert. Iris also stopped, perceiving the change in the air. "Environment. What is it?" she whispered, stroking the animal's neck. A rustling of leaves to the right caught her attention. It wasn't the natural movement of the forest. There was something mechanical, artificial in that sound. The Black Guardian whinnied softly, positioning himself between Iris and the source of the noise. "Intruders," she understood, feeling a chill run down her spine. Without hesitation, She deviated from the main trail, following an almost imperceptible path that only true valley connoisseurs would know how to identify. The Black Guardian followed her promptly, his hooves barely touching the leaf-covered ground, moving with impressive silent grace for an animal of his size. The detour led them to a small waterfall hidden among rock formations. There Iris stopped to rest briefly, drinking from the crystalline water while the horse stood guard. "We're close," she murmured, feeling the crystal pulse more intensely. She must feel it too. Indeed, on the other trail, Luna stopped suddenly, bringing her hand to the amulet that now emitted a comforting warmth. She deviated from the path, she announced, turning to her parents. "Something is following her, threatening." "Who? What are you talking about?" asked Paul, confused. "My sister," Luna replied with urgency in her voice. "We need to hurry. The clearing isn't far, and that's where we must meet." At the Circle of Concrete Operations Center, monitors showed the altered movement of one of the energy points. "We lost direct signal from one of the targets," the technician informed, frustrated. She left the main trail. Vincent hit the table with irritation. "Keep focus on the other target," he ordered. "If we can capture one of them, the other will inevitably come to us. Are the field teams ready?" "Yes, sir. Strategically positioned around the clearing." "Excellent," Vincent smiled coldly. "Now it's just a matter of time. If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us what city you're watching from. Let's continue." The sun was beginning its descent to the west when Luna, Paul and Dorothy spotted the first signs of the clearing ahead. The surrounding vegetation changed subtly. Century-old trees formed an almost perfect circle, their crowns inclined as if pointing to the center of a sacred space. The light filtered through the leaves created dancing patterns on the moss-covered ground, dotted with small wildflowers. "This is it," Luna whispered, her entire body vibrating in resonance with the amulet. "This is the place from my dreams." Paul and Dorothy watched in amazement at the transformation in their daughter. Since entering the valley, Luna seemed different, more connected, more secure, as if each step took her not only to a physical destination, but to a profound discovery of herself. "How do you know?" asked Dorothy softly. "I can see," Luna replied, her voice mixing amazement and reverence. "Not like before, not like you see. It's as if images form directly in my mind, without passing through the eyes. I see colors I didn't know existed, shapes that have no name in our language." As they advanced to the clearing's edge, the amulet on Luna's neck began to glow with increasing intensity, emitting a light hum that seemed to find echo in the surrounding trees. The birds fell silent, and even the wind seemed to hold its breath, creating a moment of almost supernatural suspension. From the other side of the clearing, between two particularly ancient trees whose trunks intertwined forming a natural arch, a silhouette emerged. Iris walked slowly, guided by the Black Guardian who accompanied her a few steps away. The crystal fragment on her neck glowed with the same intensity as Luna's amulet, creating a spectacle of lights that reflected in the leaves and humid forest air. The sisters stopped simultaneously when they were about 20 meters from each other. Recognition was instantaneous and profound, not just from the identical face each could now somehow mysteriously perceive, but from a connection that transcended physical appearance. "Luna," said Iris, the name escaping her lips as if she had always known it. "Iris," Luna replied, in the same tone of instinctive recognition. Paul and Dorothy watched the scene with contained emotion, realizing they were witnessing something greater than they could fully comprehend. The black horse whinnied softly, as if approving the encounter. The sea. Sisters advanced simultaneously, like mirrors in movement, until they met in the exact center of the clearing. When their hands touched, a wave of invisible but perceptible energy radiated from the point of contact, making the surrounding flowers open completely, and the birds resume their song in surprising harmony. "Finally," whispered Iris, tears streaming down her face. "It's like finding a part of me I never knew was missing." "I've been searching for you in my dreams since I can remember," Luna replied, equally emotional. The moment of reconnection, however, was abruptly interrupted. A mechanical buzzing began to approach, breaking the clearing's natural harmony. The Black Guardian became agitated nervously, positioning himself protectively near the sisters. "We need to hurry," Iris alerted, squeezing Luna's hands urgently. "They're coming." "Who?" asked Paul, approaching the young women with worried expression. "The Circle of Concrete," Iris explained, turning to him. "Men who seek to control the power of the Guardian crystals for their own ends. They have been watching us, waiting for this moment." Dorothy joined the group, maternal instinct amplifying her perception of danger. "What should we do?" she asked, looking around as if expecting to see enemies emerging from among the trees. "Complete what we started," Iris replied with determination. She turned to Luna. "You have the amulet, I have the crystal. Together they will show the path to the main crystal." Luna nodded, understanding intuitively what needed to be done. She removed the amulet from her neck while Iris did the same with the crystal fragment. When they brought the two objects together, something extraordinary happened. The wooden amulet began to transform, its surface hardening and acquiring the crystal's characteristic glow. "It's a disguised fragment," Luna comprehended, amazed. The two fragments attracted each other like magnets, uniting perfectly in a single piece that emitted enough light to illuminate the entire clearing, even with the sun still present in the sky. On the ground beneath their feet, luminous patterns began to form, complex geometric designs that extended from the center to the clearing's edges. "Look!" exclaimed Dorothy, pointing to one of the oldest trees. The tree trunk seemed to be slowly opening, revealing an internal cavity that also emitted the same bluish glow. Inside, partially wrapped by the tree's living roots, rested a larger crystal, clearly the core of the fragments the sisters had united. The mechanical buzzing became louder, and masculine voices could be heard rapidly approaching from various directions. The Black Guardian whinnied more forcefully, pawing the ground as if trying to hurry them. "Now I understand," said Luna, her mind processing the images the crystals transmitted directly to her brain. "Our father separated us because he feared the power we carried. He works with them, with the Circle. Not by his own choice," Iris completed, receiving the same revelations. "He's trapped in a web he helped weave himself. The abandonment was his desperate way of protecting us." Paul, who was observing the clearing's edges with growing apprehension, interrupted. "We need to act quickly. We're being surrounded." Indeed, shadows moved among the trees, approaching cautiously. Sophisticated equipment gleamed under the setting. Sun's light and orders were whispered through communicators. The sisters looked at each other, a silent decision being made between them. With determined steps, they advanced together toward the tree that guarded the main crystal. The Black Guardian positioned himself strategically between them and the approaching threats, while Paul and Dorothy remained close, willing to protect the young women at any cost. When the twins' hands simultaneously touched the main crystal, an intense flash of light filled the entire clearing, momentarily blinding everyone present, except Luna and Iris, who for the first time in their lives saw with perfect clarity. In his office in New York, Oliver Blackwood watched monitors transmitting live images from the Valley operation. When the flash of light took over the screens, he closed his eyes, a single tear running down his face marked by years of regret. "Forgive me," he whispered to his daughter's images. "I did what I believed was necessary." At the improvised operations center on the valley's edges, Vincent Strong frantically shouted orders, trying to reorganize teams after the light explosion. "Advance immediately. Capture the girls and the crystals," he ordered, his normally composed face now distorted by frustration and urgency. In the clearing, when the light diminished its intensity, a surprising transformation had occurred. The main crystal, now completely visible, pulsed like a living heart. The roots of the tree that sheltered it had extended, creating an intricate network that covered the entire clearing floor. More impressive still, other roots emerged from the ground at distant points, as if an underground communication had been established. "The network is awakening," Iris explained, her voice laden with reverence. "The Guardian crystals scattered throughout the United States are responding, reactivating ancient protection pathways." Luna, who could now see the physical world clearly for the first time in her life, watched amazed as energy lines connected. The crystals forming a pattern that resembled a constellation over the country's map. It's like an immune system of the Earth itself, she comprehended. The crystals are anchor points for energies that maintain natural balance. The men from the circle of concrete finally reached the clearing's edges, but stopped abruptly, unable to advance. An invisible but tangible barrier prevented their entry into the sacred space. Vincent Strong, who was personally leading the operation at that moment, furiously struck the barrier with a special staff developed to neutralize energy fields. His attempts, however, were completely ineffective. "This isn't over," he shouted to the sisters, his face contorted in a mask of hatred and frustration. "You can't protect all points at the same time." As direct response to his threat, the main crystal emitted a new energy pulse, and the Black Guardian rose on his hind legs, whinnied powerfully and struck his front hooves on the ground with incredible force. The impact generated an expansive wave that pushed all invaders backward, knocking them down and damaging their equipment. Paul and Dorothy watched everything with a mixture of astonishment and pride. Their adoptive daughter, along with her newly found sister, was at the center of something much greater than they could have imagined. They didn't fully understand what was happening, but intuitively felt the importance and justice of that moment. "What happens now?" asked Dorothy, approaching the young women who remained connected to the main crystal. Luna and Iris looked at each other, smiling with a complicity that seemed to transcend the 15 years of separation. "Now," Luna replied, her voice mixing joy and determination, "our true journey begins." 3 days had passed since the encounter in the clearing. The Valley of Springs pulsed with renewed energy, as if each leaf, each insect, each drop of water was more alive, more conscious. At the Sanctuary of Living Earth, an extraordinary meeting was taking place. The Elder Guardians, representatives of traditional communities from various regions of the United States, had gathered in response to the crystal's call. Luna and Iris sat side by side in the center of the circle, formed by the Guardians. Their identical faces, now illuminated by radiant serenity, revealed the profound transformation both had experienced. The physical blindness that had accompanied them since birth had transformed into dual vision. They saw both the material world and energy dimensions normally invisible to others. "What happened in the clearing was just the beginning," explained Mother Delilah, her voice resonating through the sanctuary's circular hall. The reconnection of the sisters and the union of fragments activated the main Guardian crystal, but there are 6 other crystals scattered at strategic points throughout our territory. A living map of the United States was projected in the circle's center, not through technology but by means of ancient natural magic that used light, water, and crystals to create 3-dimensional images. 7 luminous points pulsed in different regions. "The Valley of Springs, where we are now, is the system's heart," continued the Elder, pointing to the central point that glowed most intensely. "The others are located in the Pacific Northwest, the Everglades, the Grand Canyon region, the Blue Ridge Mountains, the Great Plains, and the Prairie region." Paul and Dorothy, who had been invited to participate in the meeting, observed everything with a mix of fascination and concern. In recent days, they had witnessed events that challenged their understanding of the world, but their love for their adoptive daughter and respect for the ancestral knowledge they found in the valley kept them open to this new reality. "The circle of concrete hasn't given up," intervened Jake, who had returned from a reconnaissance mission at the valley's edges. "They retreated temporarily, but are regrouping forces. Our allies report movements in all 7 Guardian crystal regions." Worried murmur ran through the circle. Jessica, the young Guardian who had alerted about the invaders' presence, rose to speak. "I managed to intercept some of their communications. They're planning simultaneous operations, aiming to capture the crystals before they can be completely activated by the network." Luna, who until then had been listening attentively, stood up. Her posture displayed a confidence that surprised even her adoptive parents. "We need to divide," she declared with firm voice. "Iris and I must visit each of the points to personally activate the crystals. Our connection with them is the key to fully awakening the protection network. Iris nodded, standing to be beside her sister. The crystal's power is not meant to be controlled or exploited, as the circle of concrete intends, she explained. It's a living balance system, developed millennia ago by indigenous peoples to maintain harmony among all life forms. Mother Delilah observed the sisters with eyes that mixed pride and concern. The journey you propose is dangerous, she warned. The circle of concrete has resources, technology, and influence. They won't hesitate to use all available means to stop you. And what about Oliver Blackwood? Asked Dorothy, speaking for the first time in the meeting. He's the girls' biological father and, from what we understand, is involved with this group that threatens them. A heavy silence fell over the sanctuary. It was Madeline who finally responded, her voice carrying the weight of painful knowledge. Oliver is not who he seems to be. His history with the crystals and with the girls is more complex than we can imagine. At this moment, as if summoned by the mention of his name, a figure appeared at the sanctuary's entrance. Tall, of elegant bearing despite his advanced age, Oliver Blackwood walked alone, unarmed, with hands raised in sign of peace. His face, marked by time and remorse, displayed an expression of profound emotion upon seeing his daughters together for the first time in 15 years. The Black Guardian, resting near the entrance, immediately rose, but not in attack posture. The magnificent animal observed Oliver with what seemed to be recognition. "He allowed your entry," murmured Mother Delilah, surprised. "The Guardian recognizes your true essence." The sisters stared at their biological father with a mixture of contradictory emotions: curiosity, resentment, confusion, and, surprisingly, an instinctive compassion that neither expected to feel. "My daughters," Oliver's voice failed with emotion. "I come alone, without weapons, without technology, without representing any interest beyond my own regret and desire for reparation." Mother Delilah made a gesture, and the Guardians opened space in the circle, allowing Oliver to approach. He walked slowly, each step seeming to carry the weight of 15 years of absence. "What do you want?" asked Luna, her voice firm but not hostile. "To offer what I know," he replied simply. "And perhaps, if you allow me, help protect what I almost destroyed." In an unexpected gesture, Oliver knelt before his daughter's head, bowed in sign of humility. "The Circle of Concrete recruited me 20 years ago, when I was just a young engineer with innovative ideas about sustainable energy," he began. "They presented themselves as an organization dedicated to progress and harmony between development and nature. Only years later did I discover their true intentions." He raised his face, revealing tearful eyes. "When they discovered my wife was pregnant with twins during the root moon, they realized the unique opportunity this represented. There exists an ancient prophecy." "We know the prophecy," Iris gently interrupted. "Children born blind during the root moon, destined to reactivate the Guardian Crystal's network." Oliver nodded, a shadow of pain crossing his face. "They monitored the entire pregnancy, performed subtle experiments that your mother didn't even notice." His voice failed again. "When they learned you had been born with the prophecy's mark, physical blindness compensated by extraordinary inner vision, the plan changed. They no longer wanted just to study you. They wanted to control you, use you as instruments to access the crystal's power." Paul approached, positioning himself protectively beside Luna. "And that's when you decided to abandon them on a deserted road?" he questioned, barely containing his indignation. "No," Oliver replied, facing Paul directly. "That's when I decided to save them the only way I could imagine." Mother Delilah intervened, her tone softening the growing tension. "The abandonment was planned together with the ancient guardians. The Black Guardian didn't appear by chance that night." All eyes turned to the imposing horse that now approached the circle, as if understanding they were talking about him. "The separation of the sisters and crystal fragments was necessary to protect them until the right moment," completed the elder. "Oliver worked in the shadows all these years, diverting the circle's attention, providing false information, buying time so you could grow and prepare." The sisters looked at each other, processing this new perspective on their history. "But now they know," Oliver continued, standing up. "Vincent Strong, The Circle's current operational leader discovered my betrayal. The teams he sent to the valley weren't just after you and the crystals. They were also under orders to eliminate me. That's why you came personally, Luna comprehended. Yes, Oliver confirmed, and because I have crucial information about their plans, within 3 days the Circle will launch simultaneous operations to capture all Guardian crystals. They're using advanced technology to neutralize the natural energy fields that protect the sacred places. An alarmed murmur ran through the sanctuary. Mother Delilah raised her hands, restoring silence. Then our decision is made, she declared. The daughters of the Root Moon must leave immediately to activate the crystals network before it's too late. Iris stepped forward, looking directly at her father. Will you come with us? She asked, extending her hand in a gesture of acceptance that surprised everyone, including herself. Oliver looked at his daughter's extended hand with barely contained emotion. If you accept me, I will dedicate the rest of my life to protecting what I almost destroyed, he replied, his voice laden with determination. Luna approached, placing her hand over Iris's and Oliver's, completing a family circle that for 15 years had remained broken. At that moment, the Guardian crystal they had brought from the clearing to the sanctuary emitted an intense light pulse, as if approving the reconciliation. On the sanctuary, walls' ancient inscriptions began to glow, revealing long-forgotten maps and instructions. The path is revealing itself, announced Mother Delilah, observing the luminous symbols. The journey of the 7 crystals has begun. Dawn tinted the sky with pink and orange tones when the expedition departed from the Valley of Springs. 7 groups formed, each destined for one of the points where the Guardian crystals rested. Luna and Iris, however, would not separate. Their twin connection was fundamental to completely activate each crystal. The plan was ambitious and risky. Visit the 7 locations in just 3 days before the Circle of Concrete could launch. Its coordinated operation. For this, they would count on the Guardian's ancestral knowledge and, surprisingly, on the technology and influence Oliver still maintained. My private jet awaits us at the regional airport, Oliver explained, while the main group followed the trail leading to the valley's exit. We can use official routes for the more accessible points and alternative methods for the more remote locations. Paul and Dorothy had decided to accompany Luna, unable to leave her to face such danger without their support. They walked side by side with Madeline and Jake, Iris's adoptive parents, forming an expanded family united by extraordinary circumstances. "How did you know you should adopt Iris?" asked Dorothy to Madeline as they walked together. The woman smiled, her eyes shining with precious memories. "It wasn't a decision, it was recognition," she replied. "When the Black Guardian brought that small child to our door, we immediately knew she was part of something greater than ourselves. The ancient stories spoke of this moment, and we simply accepted our role." Dorothy nodded, understanding more, deeply her own connection with Luna. Perhaps there was no coincidence in the fact they had found that baby on the road so many years ago. The Black Guardian accompanied the group, but differently now. Sometimes it materialized as the imposing horse everyone knew. Other times it seemed to dissolve into shadows that moved independently, as if it could exist in multiple places simultaneously. "He's communicating with the other spiritual guardians," explained Iris, noticing Luna's curious look. "Each crystal region has its own protector. In the Pacific Northwest, it's the crystal serpent. In the Everglades, the water deer. In the Grand Canyon, the firehawk. And all are awakening now that we reactivated the first crystal," Luna completed, understanding the dimension of the transformation in progress. The first destination would be the Blue Ridge Mountains, due to their relative proximity. As planned, Oliver's jet awaited them, ready to take off as soon as they boarded. On board, detailed maps and special equipment were distributed. "This communicator is based on crystal technology," explained Jessica, handing small pendants to each expedition member. "It will allow us to communicate regardless of distance or conventional technological blocks." While flying over the Appalachian Mountains, Oliver explained the details of the Circle of Concrete's plan he had discovered before his escape. "They developed energy neutralization devices," he said, showing schematics on his tablet. "They're capable of temporarily interrupting the natural protection fields that surround the crystals. They plan to install them simultaneously at all 7 points. "And what is their ultimate objective?" asked Paul, who was still trying to fully assimilate the situation's magnitude. "Power," Oliver replied simply. "The Guardian crystals are not just energy reservoirs, they're connection nodes with the planet's own consciousness. Whoever controls them could influence natural phenomena, alter climate patterns, even affect soil fertility in large regions. Imagine the political and economic power that would represent," added Mother Delilah, who accompanied the main group. "Entire nations could be subjugated by the threat of droughts, floods, or lost harvests." Luna and Iris looked at each other, feeling the weight of responsibility they carried. It wasn't just about protecting the crystals, it was about preserving the world's natural balance. The jet began its descent toward a small airport near the Blue Ridge Mountains. From there they would continue by helicopter to a remote point in the region, where the second Guardian crystal awaited. "Vincent Strong certainly already knows about our movement," Oliver alerted, checking encrypted messages on his phone. "We need to be quick and discreet." At the Circle of Concrete Operations Center, now transferred to a skyscraper in New York, Vincent observed monitors displaying aerial movement in the region. Oliver's jet landed near the Blue Ridge Mountains, a technician informed. Vincent smiled coldly. "Exactly as predicted," he replied, turning in his chair to face a special operations team awaiting instructions. "Activate Operation Blockade in the mountains. I want that crystal and the twins." Back to the expedition, the helicopter flew over a dense region of the Appalachian Mountains. Below, a green ocean extended as far as the eye could see, occasionally interrupted by imposing rock formations. "There," Iris pointed suddenly, her eyes capturing something others couldn't see. "That crescent-shaped formation, that's where the crystal is guarded." The pilot, an old ally of Oliver's who had been carefully selected for the mission, nodded and began the approach. There was no visible clearing for landing, only the forest's continuous canopy. "We'll have to rappel down," he explained, keeping the helicopter in stationary position over the point indicated by Iris. Equipped with special harnesses, the group descended one by one until reaching the forest floor. The air was humid and fragrant, charged with life. As soon as the last member touched the ground, the helicopter moved away, heading to a safe waiting point. "This way," indicated Luna, her entire body responding to a silent call that only she and Iris could perceive. They advanced through the closed forest, guided by the sisters who seemed to intuitively know each curve of the path. After about 30 minutes of walking, they reached a rock formation that rose abruptly from the forest floor. Seen up close, it really resembled a crescent moon. "The entrance is hidden," Iris murmured, running her hands over the rock surface. Luna joined her, and together their hands found small, almost imperceptible indentations. When they pressed these points simultaneously, a soft sound of stone sliding over stone filled the air. An opening appeared at the formation's base, revealing a tunnel that descended into the Earth's depths. "Incredible," murmured Paul, amazed by the ancient construction's ingenuity. The group entered the tunnel, which was surprisingly not dark. Smaller crystals embedded in the walls emitted soft light, increasing in intensity as they advanced. The air, instead of becoming stuffy, as would be expected in an underground space, seemed purer and more energizing. After a gradual descent, the tunnel opened into a wide cavern. In the center, emerging from the very ground as if it were a living part of the rock, stood the second Guardian crystal. Larger than the one from the Valley of Springs, this one had a greenish tone that pulsed like a heart. "It's beautiful," whispered Dorothy, feeling an inexplicable emotion when contemplating the crystal. The sisters advanced in perfect synchrony, as if executing a dance rehearsed for millennia. They positioned themselves on opposite sides of the crystal and simultaneously extended their hands to touch it. At the moment of contact, the crystal's light intensified dramatically. Waves of green energy radiated through the space, creating hypnotic patterns on the cavern walls. Luna and Iris closed their eyes, absorbing the knowledge the crystal transmitted directly to their minds. "This is the crystal of regeneration," announced Luna, her voice taking on an almost ethereal quality. Responsible for flora renewal cycles. It's awakening completely now, Iris completed, connecting with the main crystal in the valley. The moment of communion was abruptly interrupted by the sound of distant explosions, reverberating through the rock. They've arrived, Oliver alerted, quickly consulting a device on his wrist. They're using explosives to force entry through another point in the rock formation. How much time do we have? Asked Jake, instinctively positioning himself to protect the group. Minutes at most, Oliver replied, his face tense with concern. Mother. Delilah approached the crystal, her ancient eyes evaluating the situation with wisdom accumulated over decades. The crystal is already awake and connected, she declared. We no longer need to be physically here to maintain the active connection. As confirmation of her words, a melodious sound emanated from the crystal, and its light pulsed in a rhythm that resembled a code. On the cavern walls, symbols began to glow, similar to those that had appeared in the sanctuary. It's a map, Iris comprehended, carefully observing the symbols. It's showing us an alternative exit route. And something more, Luna added, pointing to a specific pattern. A message about the next crystal. Its protection is weakening faster than the others. We need to get to the Everglades as soon as possible. A closer crash indicated the invaders were advancing rapidly. Without time to lose, the group followed the route indicated by the symbols, a narrow tunnel that extended horizontally through the mountain. Emerging on a slope opposite to where they had entered, they found a surprise waiting. The Black Guardian, materialized in its equine form, accompanied by 3 other horses with light-colored coats. He provided transportation, Madeline understood, approaching the animals that remained remarkably calm, despite the pursuit sounds echoing through the forest. Mounting quickly, they divided into pairs on the 4 horses. The Black Guardian, carrying Luna and Iris, took the lead, guiding the group through invisible trails that wound through the dense forest. Behind them, men in tactical uniforms emerged from the mountain, communicators in hand, reporting the situation. The targets escaped, sir, one of them informed, but we installed the neutralization device near the crystal as planned. On the other end of the communication, Vincent Strong received the news with contained irritation. Is the device working? He asked dryly. Yes, sir. Readings indicate it's operational, but it doesn't seem to be having the expected effect on the crystal. Energy continues flowing. Vincent punched the table with frustration. They already activated it completely, he concluded. Reposition the teams. The next target will probably be the Everglades or the Grand Canyon. I want all units on maximum alert. Meanwhile, the group reached the meeting point with the helicopter. Upon arriving at the small clearing, the horses stopped. The Black Guardian whinnied softly, as if saying goodbye. He will materialize at the next point, Iris explained, stroking the magnificent animal's neck before dismounting. He's gathering the other spiritual guardians. Oliver, consulting his device again, showed a digital map to the group. We have to change strategy, he declared. They anticipated our route. We need to divide forces to confuse them. How will we do that? Asked Paul, concern evident on his face. We'll send the jet to the Grand Canyon as a decoy, Oliver explained. Meanwhile, we'll use an alternative route to the Everglades. Luna and Iris exchanged looks, a silent communication passing between them. We need to separate, Luna finally announced, surprising everyone. What? Dorothy approached, alarmed. I thought you needed to be together to activate the crystals. For the first awakening, yes, Iris explained. But now that the network has begun to form, we can work at different points simultaneously, accelerating the process. It's risky, Mother Delilah pondered. You'll be more vulnerable separated. More vulnerable, but more efficient, Luna replied with determination. Time is against us. We need to activate all crystals before the circle can completely neutralize any of them. After brief deliberation, the plan was established. Luna, accompanied by her adoptive parents, and Oliver, would head to the Everglades. Iris, with Madeleine, Jake, and Mother Delilah, would go to the Grand Canyon region. The other Guardians would divide among the remaining points, preparing the ground for the sisters' arrival. When the helicopter took off again, taking them back to the airport where they would separate, the sky presented an unusual spectacle. Clouds formed in perfect circular patterns, and flocks of birds flew in formations that resembled the symbols seen in the crystal cavern. "Nature is responding," observed Mother Delilah, looking through the helicopter window. "The Guardian Crystals network is awakening all the country's natural consciousness." In the depths of the Blue Ridge Mountains, the greenish crystal continued to pulse, indifferent to the neutralization device installed by the circle of concrete. Roots began to grow around the invader apparatus, slowly wrapping it, as if the forest itself were defending itself. The race against time had begun. 5 crystals still awaited the touch of the daughters of the root moon to awaken completely, while the circle of concrete mobilized all its resources to prevent this from happening. The future of the United States' natural balance, and perhaps the world's, depended on the outcome of this journey. The last 2 days had been a frantic race against time. In almost supernatural coordination, Luna and Iris managed to reach all the Guardian crystal points, always one step ahead of the circle of concrete forces. The Everglades revealed the crystal of fluidity, responsible for water cycles. In the Grand Canyon region, the crystal of transmutation, guardian of mineral transformation processes, awakened under Iris's touch. In the Pacific Northwest, the crystal of diversity pulsed with renewed vigor when Luna connected with it, strengthening biodiversity webs. In the Great Plains, the crystal of resistance, protector of renewal cycles after natural fires, responded to Iris's call. In the Prairie region, the last of the 7, the crystal of expansion, responsible for winds and seed dispersal, completed its awakening under the synchronized touch of the sisters, reunited again for the final moment. Now, everyone was returning to the Valley of Springs for the complete network integration ceremony. The Sanctuary of Living Earth bustled with activity as guardians from across the country arrived to witness the historic event. The news they brought was encouraging. At each crystal location, the neutralization devices installed by the circle of concrete had been gradually deactivated by natural forces themselves. Roots wrapped around machines, insects infiltrated circuits, unexpected storms damaged equipment. "Nature is defending itself," Jessica explained during the preparatory meeting. "The crystals are already communicating with each other, even before the final ceremony." Luna and Iris, sitting side by side in the sanctuary's center, displayed serene tranquility despite the journey's fatigue. The connection between them had deepened exponentially during the days of separation. Even physically distant, they maintained constant mental bond, sharing perceptions and information instantaneously. "We need to discuss Vincent Strong," Oliver interrupted, bringing the group back to practical concerns. "My sources indicate he's gathering all available resources for a final offensive. He plans to invade the valley during the ceremony." A worried murmur ran through the sanctuary. Paul, who in recent days had revealed himself as a surprisingly skillful strategist, stood to speak. "The valley's natural defenses have been reinforced by the crystal's awakening. Access trails are closing spontaneously, making conventional approach almost impossible." "Almost impossible doesn't mean impossible," Jake pondered, crossing his arms thoughtfully. "Vincent didn't get where he is without having extraordinary resources at his disposal." "Mother." Delilah rose with the dignity of one who carried centuries of wisdom. "The ceremony cannot be postponed," she declared firmly. "The celestial alignment will occur tonight, when the crescent moon reaches its apex. It's the perfect moment for the network's complete integration, exactly 15 years after the twins' birth." "Then we need to be prepared to defend the valley," Madeline concluded, her determined expression contrasting with her usual serenity. Dorothy, who had been silent during most of the meeting, approached the twins. "Are you ready for this?" she asked gently, maternal concern evident in her voice. Luna smiled, taking her adoptive mother's hands between hers. "We're more than ready, Mom," she replied with tranquil confidence. "Actually, the ceremony has already begun, in a way. Since the last crystal awakened, the network has been strengthening continuously." "What exactly will happen during this ceremony?" questioned Paul, voicing the curiosity many shared. Iris stood, walking to the sanctuary's center, where a living map of the United States showed the 7 guardian crystal points, all now pulsing with intense light. The ceremony will complete the energy web that connects all crystals, she explained, her graceful movements drawing patterns over the map. When complete, the network will function as an immune system for American territory, maintaining natural balance even in the face of external interference. "And what will be your role after the ceremony?" asked Oliver, a shadow of concern crossing his face. "Will you need to sacrifice yourselves in some way?" The question brought tense silence to the sanctuary. It was a fear many secretly harbored, that the daughters of the Root Moon's destiny included some kind of final sacrifice. Luna and Iris exchanged looks and smiled simultaneously. "No, Father," Luna replied softly. "It's not about sacrifice, but transformation. We will become permanent network guardians, yes, but we'll continue to live our lives. With some changes, of course," Iris added. "Our perception of the world will never be the same, and we'll have responsibilities most people couldn't understand." Oliver closed his eyes for a moment, visibly relieved. In the few days since his reunion with his daughters, he had experienced a reconnection he never believed possible. The prospect of losing them again was unbearable. The meeting continued with detailed ceremony planning and defensive strategies. While the adults discussed, the twins silently left the sanctuary, feeling the need for a private moment before the night's events. They walked side by side to the small waterfall where Iris had hidden during the initial pursuit. The place was even more vibrant now. Flowers that normally wouldn't bloom at that time of year displayed intense colors, rare butterflies danced in complex patterns, and the water itself seemed to sing a soft melody as it touched the stones. "It's strange to think that less than a week ago I didn't know you existed," Luna commented, sitting on a smooth stone by the water's edge. Iris smiled, choosing a space beside her sister. "I always knew there was someone," she replied, dipping her fingers in the crystalline water. "I didn't know who, didn't fully understand, but I felt your presence like a luminous shadow at the limits of my consciousness." "What will our life be like after today?" asked Luna, voicing the question both had been considering. "Different," Iris replied simply, "but I believe good. We'll have responsibilities, yes, but also possibilities few people could imagine." They remained in contemplative silence for a few minutes, each absorbing the other's presence and the place's transcendental beauty. It was Luna who finally spoke. "He's coming, isn't he? Vincent Strong." "Yes," Iris confirmed, her gaze becoming distant for a moment, as if observing something beyond normal senses' reach. "He's personally leading the operation. He's using experimental equipment, things not even our father knew about." "Can we stop him?" "We won't need to," Iris replied with an enigmatic smile. "The valley will take care of that." As the sun began its descent on the horizon, they returned to the sanctuary. The place's energy had subtly changed. Smaller crystals embedded in the walls now emitted more intense glow, and ancient symbols seemed to almost float over the surfaces where they were carved. Ceremony preparations were almost complete. Phi-Pei. The sanctuary's center, the Valley of Spring's main crystal, had been positioned on a rough stone altar. Around it, 7 guardians representing each region formed a circle, while other participants organized themselves in wider, concentric circles. Oliver approached his daughters, his face displaying a mixture of pride and apprehension. "Vincent's teams have been detected at the valley's outer edges," he informed in low voice. "They're using advanced infiltration equipment, trying to circumvent natural defenses." "They'll arrive too late," Luna affirmed with tranquil certainty. "How can you be so confident?" asked Oliver, genuinely intrigued by his daughter's calm in the face of imminent threat. "Because we're not alone in this fight," Iris replied, pointing outside the sanctuary. Following the indicated direction, Oliver saw something that left him momentarily speechless. At the valley's limits, various animals gathered in unusual formations. Birds of prey circled in precise patterns. Mammals of different species positioned themselves strategically. Even insects seemed to organize in coordinated swarms. "The animal guardians," Oliver murmured, finally understanding the transformation's dimension in progress. Mother Delilah approached, announcing it was time to begin the ceremony. The sun had set, and the crescent moon began its ascension in the night sky, bathing the valley with silver light that seemed more intense than normal. Luna and Iris positioned themselves on opposite sides of the main crystal, while other participants took their designated places. Paul, Dorothy, Madeline, and Jake remained close, forming a protective family circle around the twins. The ceremony began with an ancestral chant intoned by Mother Delilah, words in an almost forgotten language, older than the country itself, transmitted through generations of guardians. Gradually other voices joined, creating complex harmony that seemed to vibrate the very air. As the chant intensified, the main crystal began to pulse with increasingly bright light. Energy lines became visible, extending from the Valley of Springs to the 7 directions of the guardian crystals. On the living map projected on one of the sanctuary walls, the energy network could be seen taking shape, not just connecting the 7 main points, but extending in increasingly fine ramifications, gradually covering the entire American territory. At the valley's edges, Vincent Strong personally led an elite team equipped with the most advanced technology available. Wearing tactical suits and carrying energy neutralization devices, they cautiously advanced along the increasingly closed trail. Sensors are detecting unprecedented energy peaks, a technician informed, consulting a portable device. The ceremony must be underway. "Advance faster," Vincent ordered, frustration evident in his voice. "We cannot allow them to complete the network integration." At the exact moment he pronounced these words, the path ahead transformed drastically. Plants grew at supernatural speed, intertwining to form impenetrable barriers. The ground beneath their feet became unstable, not threateningly, but enough to prevent any progress. "What the hell is happening?" exclaimed Vincent, instinctively retreating. As response, an imposing figure materialized before the group. The Black Guardian, more majestic than ever, its eyes reflecting moonlight like silver mirrors. It wasn't alone. Beside it, other translucent forms took shape. The water deer from the Everglades, the crystal serpent from the Pacific Northwest, the firehawk from the Grand Canyon, and other spiritual guardians representing each crystal region. The vision was so impressive, so beyond the parameters of reality, Vincent understood, that he simply froze, unable to react. His men, equally stunned, slowly lowered their weapons. In the sanctuary, oblivious to the confrontation at the valley's edges, Luna and Iris had entered a deep trance state. Their physical bodies remained beside the main crystal, but their consciousnesses traveled through the forming energy network, witnessing the country's transformation from a perspective impossible for common minds. They saw forests breathing in synchrony, rivers pulsing like veins in a living organism, mountains reverberating with harmonic frequencies that stabilized regional climate patterns. They felt the Earth awakening to a deeper consciousness of itself, not as a single entity, but as a community of interconnected beings, from microorganisms in soil to the largest predators. When the moon reached its zenith, exactly above the sanctuary, a beam of lunar light seemed to concentrate directly on the main crystal. At this precise moment, Luna and Iris opened their eyes simultaneously and, in a synchronized gesture, touched the crystal with both hands. The effect was immediate and spectacular. A wave of pure energy radiated from the crystal, expanding in concentric circles that surpassed the sanctuary walls, enveloped the entire valley, and continued to expand. It wasn't a destructive wave, but transformative. Wherever it passed, plants bloomed out of season, animals felt revitalized, and even humans present experienced a sensation of profound well-being and connection with everything around. On the living map, the Guardian Crystals network finally completed itself, covering all the United States with an intricate pattern that resembled both constellations and ancient tree roots. Each intersection point glowed with a unique frequency, contributing to the whole's harmony. At the valley's edges, Vincent Strong and his men witnessed helplessly as the energy wave passed. When it reached them, something unexpected happened. Instead of being repelled or hurt, they felt enveloped by a sense of belonging so profound that many fell to their knees, tears involuntarily streaming down their faces. Vincent himself, who had dedicated decades to seeking control of the crystals, felt his world perception transform radically. In an instant of transcendental clarity, he understood the fundamental error in his approach. The crystals were never meant to be controlled, but to be partners in a cosmic dance of balance and regeneration. "Lower your weapons," he ordered, with trembling voice, dropping his own equipment. "It's over." In the sanctuary, the ceremony reached its climax. Luna and Iris, still connected to the main crystal, seemed to radiate their own light. Their identical faces displayed expressions of absolute serenity, as if they had finally found their true purpose. Gradually, the light's intensity began to diminish. The sisters stepped away from the crystal, which continued to pulse softly, now in a stable rhythm that resembled tranquil breathing. The ancestral chant reached a harmonious ending, and reverent silence filled the sanctuary. It was Luna who spoke first, her calm voice carrying natural authority she hadn't possessed before. "It is done. The Guardian Crystals network is complete and stable." "What happens now?" asked Dorothy, timidly approaching to embrace her daughter. "Now," Iris replied, equally accepting Madeline's embrace, "we live in a new balance. The network won't eliminate challenges or conflicts, but it has established natural limits that will prevent catastrophic imbalances." Oliver, who observed his daughters with a mixture of pride and admiration, noticed something surprising. "Your eyes," he murmured, approaching to see better. The twins' eyes, previously clouded by congenital blindness, now displayed crystalline irises with iridescent reflections that resembled the Guardian Crystal's light. "We can see now," Luna confirmed, smiling at her biological father. "Not just the physical world, but the energies that sustain it. It's a gift and a responsibility," Iris added. "We'll be the network's main guardians as long as we live." Mother Delilah approached, her ancient face displaying deep peace. "And when the time comes, other guardians will arise," she said with serene wisdom. "The cycle will continue as it always has." The next morning, as the sun rose over a transformed valley of springs, the group gathered for a simple outdoor breakfast. News arrived from all parts of the country. Inexplicable but beneficial phenomena were being reported in various regions. Degraded areas showed surprising signs of regeneration, species believed locally extinct reappeared, and even the climate seemed to find more harmonious balance. "What will you do now?" asked Paul to the twins, while they savored fresh fruits picked from the nearby orchard. Luna and Iris exchanged a complicit look before responding. "We still have much to learn," Luna replied, "and much to teach as well." "We need to establish a new Guardians Council," Iris complimented, "people who will understand the network's importance and help protect it." "And what about Vincent and the Circle of Concrete?" questioned Jake, still concerned about possible future threats. Oliver, who had received news through his contacts, replied, "Vincent dissolved the Circle this morning. Many of its members are, surprisingly, looking for ways to repair the damage they caused." "The energy wave didn't just complete the crystals network," Mother Delilah explained. "It also awakened in many hearts the understanding of our fundamental connection with the Earth." While they conversed, the Black Guardian silently approached the group. It wasn't alone. Accompanying it, a flock of blue butterflies danced in the morning air, creating patterns that seemed to transmit a message. Luna and Iris stood simultaneously, as if they had received a silent call. They briefly said goodbye to the group and followed the black horse, which guided them to a more reserved part of the valley. There, in a small clearing surrounded by flowering trees, they found a surprise. 2 horse foals, one white as snow and another black as night, grazed tranquilly side by side. Our companions, Iris comprehended, approaching the black colt, which raised its head in recognition. "The next generation of guardians," Luna completed, extending her hand to the white colt, which gently touched it with its muzzle. The Black Guardian observed the scene with what seemed to be approval in its ancient eyes. Its 15-year mission was complete. The daughters of the Root Moon had found their path and restored the balance that had been threatened for so long. As the sun climbed in the sky, bathing the Valley of Springs with golden light, The twins shared a moment of silent understanding. The path ahead would be challenging, but now they walked together, guided by the crystal's wisdom and supported by an expanded family that transcended blood bonds. The separation that had marked the beginning of their lives had finally given way to a union that would benefit not only them, but an entire country whose nature now breathed in renewed harmony. The circle was complete, and a new chapter began. Not just for Luna and Iris, but for the very Earth that now awakened and watched its daughters with maternal love. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe.